Yeah, everyone here with me? Can everyone hear me? Okay, right. Okay, so today, social legal issues or current socio-economic and political issues, right? That's our topic. Okay. So basically, we are going to look at the significant issues. Okay, and what do we mean by significant issues? We're going to talk about three issues, right? And the three issues are corruption, poverty, and education. With me on this? The three issues: corruption, poverty, and education. Now, let's try to understand corruption. Now, if you go back a couple of years back, you realize that we had the 2011 Anna Hazare movement, India Against Corruption movement, right? And from that, we have offshoots like Arvind Kejriwal's Aam Aadmi Party. Kiran Bedi yesterday joined the BJP a couple of days back, not yesterday, but joined the BJP a couple of days back, right? And so, this picture shows, a lot of essay writing competition, a lot of painting competitions were on the issue of corruption. And this photo is just from one of them, right? And it says, देश का होगा बोलबाला जब भ्रष्टाचार का आंदोलन ही होगा हमारा नारा, right? So that, corruption became a election issue for the first time in 2014, right? When the Modi government came into power, right? Okay, so let's try to define corruption. Now, this definition is important because in your essay, in your GDs, you would like to define corruption before it starts, right? Before the GD starts or before you talk about it in the essay. So how would you say corruption is? So let's take the example of Transparency International's corruption, right? So abuse of entrusted power for private gain. Okay, quickly write it down. What is corruption? Abuse of entrusted power for private gain. With me on this? Abuse of entrusted power for private gain, right? Okay, so corruption, 2014. Our ranking was 85th out of 175 countries in Transparency International's Corruption Perceptions Index. Okay, so what do you mean by corruption perception? That how are Indians perceived to be corrupt. Okay, it is not how we actually are corrupt, but how our perception of corruption is, right? So we are, if you look at it, we are becoming less and less corrupt in this sense. In 2013, our ranking was 94. Everyone with me till now? Right? So, as I said before, corruption was a central issue in India's 2014's elections, right? Okay, let's try to understand corruption, right? What are the forms of corruption? So first is systemic versus incidental. Okay, what do we mean by systemic? Okay, just write down systemic corruption can be seen in the government sector, especially if you look at it, the revenue services and the excise taxation services. So there's a certain cut, 10% or so, which is systemic in nature. That it is there, it is like a tax. Okay, incidental is that you didn't, there was no previous pattern of corruption, but corruption has happened in a certain case. Okay, that might be the 2G scam. Okay, previously there was no corruption before in that system, but once we saw that there's money there, the government typically became corrupt in a certain area. With me? The next is according to the law versus against the law. Okay. Now you might be confused about this. What do you mean by according to the law? Sometimes there are loopholes in laws, okay, which allow for corruption. That the law is badly written, so there can be corruption because of that. So you have the issue of transfer pricing, okay. So how do I, do transfer pricing from one subsidiary to the other to reduce my taxes? So that is corruption according to the law, right? Versus against the law, that I do tax evasion. Everyone with me till now? Say yes, say something. Okay, right. So monetary versus nepotism. So monetary is like let's assume you applied for a seat as a inspector in Punjab Police. Okay. So you are told that you have to pay 50 lakh rupees to get the post of inspector. So that would be monetary corruption. Okay? Versus nepotism. What is nepotism? You know the DIG or you know the IG, so he typically gives you the seat. So, or you are from the same caste as the person who is selecting you. So that is nepotism. With me on this? Okay, what is nepotism? Caste-based bias or a religion-based bias is nepotism, or family or familiarity wala. With me? Okay. So now petty corruption versus grant. So what is petty corruption? I think everybody has paid off a cop for some traffic violation or the other. So that is petty corruption. Versus grand is obviously you have a huge scam, right? Of hundreds and thousands of crores, right? Like a Colgate scam and like that. Okay. So number 5, active versus passive, right? So active is what? Again, when I actively participate in the corruption. What do you mean by that? That I am also acting for being corrupt. Okay. On the other hand, passive, in which I do not become a part of the corruption, but I also get benefits out of it. Okay. With me on this? Everybody clear? Yes, no, say something. Okay, right. Okay, so let's have a look at the types of corruption. Okay, so bribery is a form, having a fraud is a form, embezzlement of funds, right? That normally happens in a lot of like favoritism, as we talked about. Nepotism and favoritism are similar. Extortion, right? Like a police wala extorts money from you when you're in trouble. Abuse of discretion, conflict of interest. Okay, so MS Dhoni, right? Conflict of interest, in which way, because his company also used to manage Suresh Raina, Rohit Sharma and Ashwin, right? Again, N. Srinivasan, conflict of interest, because he is also the head of BCCI and also the owner of India Cements and also the owner of CSK. Hence, there is a conflict of interest. With me? Abuse of discretion. Supposedly, I can, have discretion in a certain way. I can favor one person of the other, and I'm not fair in doing so. Okay? That I favor one person, but so I can choose him. Illegal contributions, right? Again, these are all examples of public sector corruption. Now understand, corruption is a term related to the public sector. Ye likh lo. Corruption is public sector. Okay? It is not in the private sector. The term is not used in the private sector. In the private sector, it is known as an illegal act. It is not corruption. Okay? With me on this? Any questions on this slide till now? Any questions? Okay. Okay, let's now understand the causes of corruption. Now, let's quickly have a look. A conflict of interest is corruption when there is a malified intention towards it. Right? Sometimes you say the conflict of interest will not have malified intention, but corruption is not just being corrupt. It is also the perception of corruption, Aditya. That, I say that I am not corrupt. Okay? That's fine. But I cannot be perceived to be corrupt also. Okay? लोग ना बोले मेरे बारे में कि मैं corrupt हूँ. Okay? In the long run, and when I say log na bole, it is in the long run. It is not in the short run that I am talking about corruption. Okay? Because in the short run, there can be allegations against me, true or false, that is time to decide. Okay? Okay. So causes of corruption. Low economic development and high poverty. Okay? That's the most important reason. So we had something known as the Hindu rate of growth. Okay? The Hindu rate of growth that happened in the 1970s and 80s. Okay? 60s, 70s, 80s. So we had low growth rates. Okay? And a trickle-down theory in economy. So the flow of money and the flow of growth was not helping the majority of the population. So then that's why we have now the agenda of inclusive growth in the 11th and the 12th 5-year plan, right? High poverty. So India extremely has high poverty. As you know, there have been many committees on poverty. So we have the Lakhadwala committee, we have the Tendulkar committee, and recently we had the Rangarajan committee. And in the Rangarajan committee, we have already been told about it, right? That in the Rangarajan committee, they typically mention that 47 rupees in urban area and 32 rupees in a rural area typically is the BPN, right? And it also said that 35% of rural population and 25% of urban population will always be seen as BPN. Okay? Everyone with me on this? What recommendations of the Rangarajan Committee on Poverty? Right? Okay? In case you are not clear about this, just read it again. Okay? So, especially note कर लो Rangarajan Committee on Poverty. कि ये क्या थी? ये Google पे search कर लेना. If nothing else, if you missed some point, right? Okay? Or I'll repeat even after some time. Okay? So आगे देखो. Unintended consequences of liberalization LPG. That is, L stands for liberalization, P stands for privatization, G stands for globalization. Okay? So what happened? That the private sector started to bribe the public sector. Okay? You might know about Airtel bribing BSNL, people to make sure their services are not as good as what Airtel services are, or Vodafone services are, right? Yes, she just lobbying obviously is one of the consequences, but lobbying used to happen before also, right? Okay, so lack of transparency and accountability, and iski वजह से अन्ना हजारे movement हुई थी, like to have accountability through a Lokpal and a Lokayukt Act. So ये देख लो Lokpal and Lokayukt Act में था क्या? Okay, so public disclosure of assets of public servants, which is very very important. So that is also a part of the Lokpal and Lokayukt Act. ठीक है? And Lokpal Lokayukt Act में बोलते हैं कि लोकपाल बनेगा गवर्नमेंट में and लोकायुक्त बनेगा स्टेट में within the year. So these points also again have to be studied by you. Then transparency, right? So RTI Act is the best solution to handle this situation. So Right to Information Act, under which you, a private citizen, that is a person, not an organization. Remember, this RTI Act only a person can access. You can ask information from a public authority. With me on this? Public authority. So I cannot ask information from Reliance. Okay? But I can ask information on from Reliance on a public-private partnership maybe. Okay? But that also can be directed from the CPWD or some department of the government. With me on this? Right? Okay. Then we have weak institutions. PWD, Works Department, Public Works Department. So Central Public Works Department. Right? So let's assume Reliance is making some hospital for the government. Right? That way. So CPWD would have information on how much money was spent and etc. Right? Okay. Weak institutions. Now, if you understand, institutions have to be strong. There's some institutions in India which are actually a figurehead institution. So political appointees बहुत ज़्यादा India में. Okay? So now even if you look at the censor board, there's so many political appointees in that board. Okay? That's a National Commission of Women है, National Committee of Minorities है. इसमें जितने भी members और वो है ना political appointees है. Okay? So that makes them weak because they are politically linked. Instead of acting as a check, they act as a status quoist. With me on this? Right? Okay. Over-regulation. Now, in the 1970s and 80s, there was license Raj. You had quotas. Okay? Right? You had quotas in the 1970s and 80s. Okay? So, license Raj tha. Ki I can only produce 100 scooters a year. Or 100 cars a year. This was a quota already given. With me on this? Now, what happened? Now we had the Inspector Raj. So the inspector can come and harass you anytime after 1991. Okay? Again, इसका solution क्या है कि labor reforms हो रहे हैं. Okay? And typically automation of inspections हो रही है. Okay? Then is lack of effective grievance redressal. Okay? So now let's assume I'm went to a passport office to get my passport. Okay, but there is no grievance redressal mechanism कि मुझे 15 दिन में मेरा passport बन के नहीं मिला and all that. Okay, so a grievance redressal mechanism should be there, should be strong, and there has to be a time limit in which action has to be taken. Okay, this is actually a idea behind the citizen charter में भी ये होता है. Like if you go to SBI, you might see a citizen charter lying around there. Yeah, how much time will they, in which time they will actually give you a draft? In how much time will they give a check be transferred, etc. Okay, so this is the minimum standard. Okay, and even if in the railways you have a logbook in which you can complain. Okay, then slow judicial system. Now the problem of the judicial system is that it is slow. That despite the fact you will get justice, it might be so late that justice might not even be important. Which is a huge problem again. I want justice to happen. And I want it to happen as quickly as possible. So justice delayed is justice denied, as we say. Okay? Right? Pendency to hai hai. We all know the problem of pendency in judiciary, right? So these problems are hurting us where it hurts the most. Right? Because who is supposed to be independent? The judiciary from the executive. Right? So if the judiciary is slow, the independence has no value. Right? Okay. RTI has a definite time. Yes, definitely it has 30 days. Right? Also, in which they have to give information to you. Okay. Though there are certain exceptions, but normally they give you information in these time frames. Okay, so what is the cause of corruption? So first is the idea of me first. Okay, why I will be corrupt? Because it serves my purpose. So let's talk about us. So now the question goes to all of you. How many of you have cheated in an exam? Okay, just type yes if you have cheated in an exam ever. Okay, the question is how many of you have cheated in an exam ever? Okay. So now, Ram Gopal says, one of your fellow attendees, he's saying that he has never cheated in the exam. Okay? You heard me? Ram Gopal says that he has never cheated in the exam ever. Okay? So now the question goes to all of you except Ram Gopal, that how many of you believe that he has never cheated? Siddhant, same question on to you also. That Ram Gopal says he has never cheated. Okay, so how many of you believe that he has never cheated? Right? Okay. So what is the problem? That people do not believe others to be honest. Likh lo ye. People do not believe, I do not believe that others are honest. That is my attitude. That is my belief. As you said, Rochi, right? That it is unbelievable. Rochesman. Right? Unbelievable, right? Right? So, you do not believe in the honesty of others. Okay? Next question. Next question is, a lot of you have said you have cheated, right? How many of you believe the others are saying truth? कि बाकी लोग सही कह रहे हो कि तुमने cheating नहीं की है cheating. You have cheated in exams. That person has cheated in exam. He is saying he has cheated in exams and he's right. He has cheated in exams. You believe it. Right? So I think most of us believe that other people have cheated in exams than the other way around. Okay? That tells us how corrupt our society is, how corrupt our family is, etc. etc. Because if we were living in a place where corruption would be less, it would have been very different. With me on this? Okay. So hence, the cause of corruption is our own personal greed and our belief systems, our family, our society, and our workplace. Okay. Okay. Let's take another example. Let's assume you join as a clerk in a government job. Okay. Maybe in the income tax department. Okay. So, in the income tax, you are a very honest person. Okay. But your friend in the next room is a very dishonest person and is very corrupt. He takes a lot of bribes. Okay. So what happens? His standard of living, the standard of living of his wife, his daughter, his son, etc., is much, much higher than yours. With me? That his standard of living is very high because he has more money than you because he's corrupt. Despite the fact you're both in the same jobs. Right? Okay. So, what happens? Right? First month your wife might not agree to it, or your girlfriend might not say that that is incorrect. But in some time, right, what will happen? It will lead to a problem between your family only. Right? Because everybody wants to be well off rather than being not corrupt. Because there is no incentive in honesty anymore in our country. Okay? Right? Chalo, आगे चलते हैं. Okay, very quickly, sources of corruption, we already talked about executive, that is the government, that is the ministers, right, themselves. Political, the MLAs, MPs. Bureaucratic, the IS officers, the clerk, the inspectors, the state services, etc. Right? Legislative, obviously you have cash for vote scams, you have cash for voting in a certain way, right? That has happened many times. Operation Duryodhan. Then we have even in Narasimha Rao's time we had JMM case in which the Narasimha Rao supposedly paid the JMM MPs to vote for him, right? Then we have judicial corruption, right? And we understand it, despite the fact judiciary is independent, they are still corrupt. There is a problem of the uncle judges cases, right? That you practice in the same court as your relative who is also a judge, right? Then media, right? Right now, if you look at it, you have the Z issue with Naveen Jindal, in which the Z people asked for 200 crores, right, to give favorable coverage to Jindal Steel. Okay. Then corporate corruption is definitely there, and that can be seen very apparently. Adani Group is one example recently, right? Typically, Adani Group has very strong ties with Narendra Modi, and you would see that SBI recently gave them a loan of more than $1 billion, and so on. Okay, very quickly, anti-corruption measures, though we have talked about it. So, judiciary is supposed to be one mechanism, and definitely it has been, especially in the 2G spectrum case, etc. Then we have the CBI, though it is controlled by the central government, it has played its role. The CBC, which is actually for handling corruption in public services. So, CBC manages the IS officers, etc. Enforcement Directorate, and you would have heard it about GTA being called by the Enforcement Directorate under the drugs issues in Punjab. With me on this? Okay, Lokpal Lokyukt Act 2013, as as I said, please prepare this Lokpal and Lokyukt Act. Okay, then Right to Information Act, as we have talked about. The e-governance, because it gives more transparency, right? It makes easy. So decrease in access of a person to a government official. So I do not need to go to office to get my work done. I can file it online. I'll get the certificate even online, right? With me on this? CCI is basically the Competition Commission of India. Marut? CBI versus CBC. CBC is just for government services. CBI is also for private. So politicians also come under the CBI. But CBC is only for the government officials. Okay. now the issue is that there have been no recent cases of corruption in 2014. Yes, that's true. We haven't had. What does this mean? That either systems are improving or things aren't unearthed yet. So basically, what is happening is that maybe right. If you look at it, Arun Jaitley, he actually asked the CAG not to do fish hunting. Okay. So what does that mean? That stop finding corruption cases. Okay. Right. Just do your job. Right. Corporate corruption. Now, corporate corruption refers to corruption led by either a corporation or an individual acting on behalf of a corporation or business entity. Now, try to understand, we are given a lot of examples of this. So, what is ethical turpitude? So, cartelization in cement industry, or this is again the example of CCI. That what has happened? That you have cartelization. What does that mean? That you all say that cement is worth this much amount of rupees and you sell that product only, because there are only certain suppliers who can supply cement. Okay, there is insider trading. So Rajat Gupta, who was the previously from Goldman Sachs and McKinsey, did insider trading, gave tips for insider trading, and has also gone to jail for that. Now, money laundering. So again, this was Abhishek Verma case. Abhishek Verma is an arms dealer, and he gave a lot of kickbacks a couple of years back for the contracts on helicopters, etc. Right? Account manipulation, as you can see, Satyam is known for it. Satyam is one of the biggest cases of corporate governance abuses, right? In which profits were shown despite the fact there were no profits, right? Fixing of prices, yes. Marut, cartelization is just fixing of prices, right? Corporate abuse, and that keeps on happening, right? Corporate abuse in various facets. But still, it is known as illegal. These would be termed as illegal acts and not corruption. Okay. Okay. Now, any questions on corruption? Till now, we have covered corruption. Any question on this? Crony capitalism is like a nexus between bureaucracy, the businessman, and the executive, that is the minister. Okay, like take the example of Punjab government. Okay, now we have Prakash Singh Badal, and also owning PTC, that is the television channel. Okay, and also owning the government, basically running the government. So what does that do? Crony capitalism starts. Now he will not let any other player come in the Punjab circle, right? So DNA Punjab got closed. No other channel works in Punjab except PTC. Okay. With me, any questions? Prathamesh, Suman, any questions? You came late. Any questions from anybody? LPG is Suman, liberalization, privatization, and globalization. So what does, after 1991 we had reforms, right? So opening up of industries, economic reforms, privatization of some industries, and obviously letting in MNCs come to India. Okay, so let's try to define poverty. Okay, so let's poverty stats from us. Okay, so let's try to define poverty. So can you all type your pocket money on the text chart? How much pocket money do you get? How much money do you spend in a certain month? Quickly type how much pocket money do you get in a month. Ravi says 500, Abhishek says 1500, Suman says I earn. Suman, how much you earn? Write that only. Write whatever you're earning. If you are earning, write the amount of money you're earning. So around 50,000, 40,000, okay. Working. Right? So 4,000 rupees, okay, right? So if I look at it, absolute poverty के terms में और relative poverty के terms में. So now if I look at absolute poverty, okay, Tapayan is definitely more poor than Suman, right? Because Tapayan is earning, typically spending only 4,000 rupees, and Suman might be spending 50,000. True? So on absolute poverty scale, Tapayan might be more worse off than Suman, right? True? With me on this? But relatively it might not be true. Okay? But because Tapayan might be staying at home, okay, might need to spend up, might not need to spend anything else, right? No clothing, no fooding, everything is taken care by parents, right? So relative, absolute. Okay, let's take another example. So I had a student, like you all are my students as well, a couple of years back. Okay, right? She says she is not rich because she doesn't have a 2-canal house in Chandigarh. Okay, what does he say? She says that she is not rich or she is poor. Okay, because she doesn't have a 2-canal house in Chandigarh. That she only lives in a flat. Understand what she's saying? Her standard is relative to that. So that is what relative poverty is all about. Okay? Let's take another example. So like the Parsi community. You know what Parsi is? Godrej is Parsi, right? Nusli Wadia is Parsi. Okay? So they are Parsis. So Parsis are actually extremely rich as a community. Business-minded people, they are extremely rich. So their poverty line is 80,000 rupees. Now what do they say? If you earn less than 90,000 rupees a month, you will get a flat subsidized in the society, that is the Parsi society. Okay? With me on that? What are you saying? That you will get a subsidy from us because you are poor in comparison to others. So you cannot afford a flat in Bombay. So we'll give you in for like 15-20 lakhs, which might be worth maybe 6-7 crores. So that is the concept of relative poverty. Right? Yeah, Mohit, it is true, search kar lena. Okay. Okay. No, actually it is the figure they gave. The society. They said 90,000 rupees minimum. Okay. So now let's quickly define. Poverty is a lack of a certain amount of material possessions or money. Absolute poverty is inability to afford basic human needs, water, nutrition, healthcare, education, clothing, and shelter. Relative poverty is the lack of socially acceptable level of resources or income as compared with others within a society. Okay, so now let's take the figure. Now Tendulkar methodology, which was 32 rupees and 26 rupees. Okay, so this gives you per capita income. This I have given you, right? But this has changed. Rangarajan committee has a different number, that is 47 rupees and 32 rupees. Okay, with the higher number is for urban, the lower number is for rural. Right. On the other hand, the UN says that $1.25 per day. Right? With me on this? Okay, right, Simrat, you're late little. Try to buckle up, right? Okay, poverty in India. Now let's try to understand. There have been different committees. UN standard, yes, it's basically PPP, $1.25. Right? Okay, poverty. So let's try to understand BPL. But जैसे मैंने पहले बात की थी, रंगराजन कमेटी बोलती है कि जो 35% अर्बन एंड 35% रूरल एंड 25% अर्बन लोग हमेशा पुअर माने जाएंगे. So that is the new estimates of committee that has come. So that is the Rangarajan committee. So the previous is the Arjun Sen committee and the Tendulkar committee. With me on that? So इन्होंने 37% approximately बोला हुआ था जो पुअर है. Okay? तो अब वैसे अगर मैं कैलकुलेट करूं तो as they have given around 21% लोग BPL हैं. Okay. This is the old figure as we were talking about. 32 rupees and 27. 33 they have given. 32 point something. Okay. So facing increasing criticism. Now this में आप इसको ध्यान से देखो. 32 rupees है ना, ठीक है. अब ऐसा करो 32 rupees को multiply करो 5 से. Because I'm basically calculating a family of 5. So how much is 32 into 5? Just type. That's 160, right? Right? And 160 into 30, how much is that? 4,800. Okay, so typically around 5,000 rupees. So that is the amount of money that in a rural area a family of 5 can survive in. Okay, this is the minimum criteria. Okay, this might work out because, you know, if I say 32 rupees per day, that is not valid. But if I say 4,800 rupees for a family of 5, it might work out. Why? Because economies of scale are there. Okay, with me on this? Okay, so ऐसे define करना. Okay, so it's not 32 rupees a day or 47 rupees a day. It is actually, you know, 4,800 rupees a day, right? Oh, sorry, a month for a family of 5. Okay, so the criticism is not really correct. When I, you know, get into the minute details, I can criticize things, but actually it is not true. Okay, any questions? Funda of economies of scale. अरे यार, come on. खाना खाने गया गर्लफ्रेंड के साथ, चलो गर्लफ्रेंड खाने, दोस्त के साथ किसी. हाँ हाँ, राइट, खाना खाने गया है ना. वैसे गर्लफ्रेंड तो खाना ज्यादा खाती नहीं है, तो 2 लोग खाना खाएं, 2 लोग बिल स्प्लिट करें, तो फिर पैसे कम लगते हैं ना अकेले ऑर्डर करने से. True that. So that is economies of scale. Simple terms. Okay. Causes of poverty. Now, causes are, obviously India has a lot of population. We have a lot of population and very less people, you know, obviously people. BPL obviously subsidized राशन मिलता है यार, PDS system है वो, right? That solutions हैं सुरेश, अब वो बाद में आएंगे. Illiteracy, okay? Because if you are less literate, you will get paid less, right? Then unemployment, again same problem. If you are unemployed, you will be paid less. Again, you will be poor. Restricted economic policies, that is pre-liberalization, and exploited economic policies post-liberalization. So what is happening? There's the top rich are getting richer, and there's a jobless growth. So that is leading to poverty as well. Then over-reliance of agriculture. Now agriculture में growth rate इतना बढ़ नहीं रहा था last few years से. Plus there is disguised unemployment in agriculture. So that is also a problem. Obviously, corruption is also a problem, and the caste system also perpetuates poverty in a certain section. With me on this? Everyone? So, Shirish, where Food Security Act, that can solve that problem. So that is, but there are a lot of subsidy with Food Security Act. So more than 1 lakh crore rupees will be spent in subsidy for the Food Security Act, right? Because we are giving at 1 rupee, 2 rupee, 3 rupees rice, wheat and coarse grain, right? Okay. See, cash transfer has a different problem. Now, Varun, understand cash transfer problem ये है, we have a bias for a male child. हाँ Varun, bias है ना इंडिया में male child के लिए. तो अगर मैंने cash transfer दिया ना तो लड़की को खाना नहीं मिलेगा. समझ रहे हैं? Right? So that cash transfer, you know, has also its problems. Okay, the guy might spend it for having liquor, for drugs. Okay, instead of actually feeding his family. So उसके लिए हमें कुछ solution सोचना पड़ेगा. Though cash transfer is actually a more effective way. Okay, so initiatives क्या हैं to eradicate poverty? First is the Right to Work Act or the NREGA. Okay, in which 100 days of guaranteed employment is given to one household and preference is given to females. ये बात ध्यान रखना. 100 days of work is given. Okay, it is demand oriented. ये बात है ना, demand oriented in रहेगा. You have to demand work. बट डिपेंड्स, मारूत डिफरेंट जगहों पे स्टार्ट 100 डेज ही हुआ था. ओके, सो सपोज ट्राइबल एरिया है, वहां पे ज्यादा कर दिया मैंने. ड्रॉट वाला एरिया है, ज्यादा कर दिया, डेज बढ़ा दिए मैंने. राइट, सो मिनिमम वेज भी है इसमें. ओके, एंड फीमेल्स आर encouraged to work under Narega also. Then is the Right to Education Act. Okay, in which again you get people to get educated, and we open so much schools. But the problem again with the Right to Education Act is what? The infrastructure, the quality of education. हाँ, सर्व शिक्षा अभियान. SSA stands for सर्व शिक्षा अभियान. Okay, then we have financial inclusion or the Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana. Right? Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana financial inclusion scheme, so that it wants everybody to come under the financial net. Right? I think you should actually prepare this. What idea was that we wanted every person to have a bank account, because then only cash transfer can work, then only Narega can work. With me? See, कुछ change नहीं हुआ सुमन अभी. Though there were talks about changing things, but there have been no changes because there were a lot of criticism. The problem is it's a demand-centric side. So what has happened is that you have to demand it first. No, allocation reduced to me, it's same. It hasn't been increased. Okay, allocation is the same, 33,000 crores. Okay. Yes, Maru, third and sixth are same, right? Financial inclusion is a wider term, so it also includes financial literacy. Okay, Jan Dhan Yojana is a implementation of financial inclusion, right? Cash transfer, again, you need Jan Dhan Yojana, then only cash transfer can work. I cannot give, cash transfers in Hawa, right? So I have to give it to a bank account. So Jan Dhan Yojana is important. Then the Food Security Act, as we ever talked about, that huge subsidy bill. Which state are all bank state? What does all bank state means, Varun? Matlab, there are banks everywhere in every state. MP, I think, has done pretty well in that. Okay, but you really can't say that everybody would have an account. Okay, for that you need proof. Okay, till now it's only a claim that has happened. Right? Okay, Food Security Act, we have already talked about it. Right? 1 kg, 2 kg, 3 kg wheat, rice, wheat and coarse grain. Okay, at a very subsidized price. Okay, and इसमें ये भी है that you also get a food security allowance. Okay, in case you are not given this wheat rice. Okay, and if you are a lactating mother, that you are pregnant, you are also given extra food. If you are a child, again you are given extra food to make sure that you do not go malnutrition. With me, everyone? Any questions on this? Okay, reservation system. Okay, the basis is caste, religion, gender, domicile. Now let's try to understand reservation. Okay, अब reservation के बारे में समझते हैं, क्या problem क्या है और फायदा क्या है. Now idea क्या है reservation का? Reservation का idea ये है, जो weaker section है उनके favor में public policy होनी चाहिए. Okay, now let's assume there is no reservation right now. Okay, assumption लेते हैं reservation exist नहीं करती. So what would happen? जो बंदा is rich will remain rich because he gets access to better education, better services, etc. Right? Hence, there is no change in the social hierarchy. Right? And India में बहुत strong socially hierarchy बनी हुई है, caste system बना हुआ है. Right? So there are some castes which are actually well off. Okay, so against that we started the reservation system, first for SC/STs, now for OBCs and so on. Right? But problem क्या हो रही है reservation system की? The problem is that you will always use, लिख लो, you will always use or make policies for your own self. You will always make Okay, what does that mean? That you will make a policy. Let's assume I'm a Jat. I will make a policy for reservation for Jats. I am a Baniya. I will make a policy for reservation for Baniya. Okay. So what is the problem with reservation? That who is in power. So if I'm OBC, I'll make reservation for OBC. So that is exactly what happened. That majority of people in the Indian Parliament were OBCs. Hence they voted for OBC reservation. Hence they had a Mandal Commission. Okay? With me? Okay. But अब दूसरी इशू क्या चलता है रिजर्वेशन का. नाउ एक्चुअली में रिजर्वेशन क्यों चाहिए? अब ये बात ध्यान रखो कि a person starting in Ladakh in a backward area, okay, cannot compete with a person studying in Chandigarh and having access to a better education in the same exam. Hence, the person who's in a backward area who has no access to equal systems should have a reservation, because he cannot. Equal should be treated equally and unequal should be treated unequally. That is the idea. So next question is financial criteria. Now the problem is financial criteria is India में लोग income tax नहीं भरते. So the business class abuses it and gets certificates में. Okay, saying that I'm below BPL, I am etc. etc. Right? So they never come under the creamy layer criteria of OBCs. You will see that abuse blatantly in any college you go. The OBC reservation wala. You will see very well off people, but having those certificates, and therefore they do not qualify the creamy layer. Okay. Right. Then need to be rationalized. Obviously, domain level periodicity. Again, once reservation is given, it becomes a political problem, and it can never be taken away. And that is what has been happening till now. अभी तक कोई भी बंदा once you have got reservation, you got it forever, and that is the problem, right? Okay. So very quickly, let's look at Manrega. Enacted in 2005 September, extended to all districts of India. Minimum living index wages to CPI, 100 years of employment per year per family based. They are paid on the piece rate basis. Okay, 5 points. Very quickly, right? Quickly have a look. Any questions on this? On Narega? Suman, you were asking about changes in Narega. There was a idea behind changing it that make it more asset productive. But अभी तक हुआ कुछ नहीं. Okay. That they wanted 51% of the money being spent, 60% of the money spent in asset making, right? Institutions or asset making end products. Okay, criticism, financial holes, digging holes and filling them up. होता क्या है नरेगा में? There is no long-lasting asset being made. Okay, outlay, as I said, was 33,000 crores. Corruption again, a lot less money. There's problem of farm labor shortages, right? True, because people are getting money for not working. No, that is a problem then. Narega. Okay, what are the pros? There have been a correct identification of beneficiaries. It has really helped in increasing this, the rural purchasing power that has happened. Okay, and the minimum wage has been given, and that's a big deal, I would say. Okay, right. Basically, Narega has been given, preferences or given, example of a stellar development of rural development. Actually, it also helps in, handling drought. It is actually not just right to work, it is a right to a good environment. So the environment preservation हो रही है इसके through. Actually, if you look at it. So watershed बन रहा है and all the ponds बनते हैं village में, right? तो वो क्या हो रहा है इससे? So that is why the World Bank said Narega is, right, barrier to development. पहले बोला, उसने बोला नहीं, it is actually really good. Okay, right to food. Again, the problem is that India ranks poorly on the global hunger index. 22% of the population suffers from undernourishment. That's a big problem. Poor people starve. 1.3 million tons of food grains rot in various warehouses. Now that this was Supreme Court said that yaar, itna sard hai, why don't you just give it away? Okay, but again that is a moral hazard. Okay, that if I give free food, people will stop working. Okay, and obviously I cannot justify it financially. Again, so हुआ क्या? Right to Food Act बना 25 kgs of wheat, rice, coarse grains at 1 rupee, 2 rupee, 3 rupee as I said. Okay, and the service will be linked to Aadhaar. Okay, so Aadhaar की problem क्या है? Despite the fact that the Modi government previously before becoming the government, used to criticize this, they have accepted it and they agree to it. I think everybody has Aadhaar cards, right? It's a very expensive project, yes, but yes, it will lead to better targeting and minimize wastage, right? That is what the Aadhaar will do. Cost, see, Aadhaar project, if you look at it, it's above 50,000 crores now. Okay, it's billions of dollars now, basically. Okay, and the problem is that it is not a legislative act till now. It is still an executive order. Okay, so that is the real criticism. Then obviously Aadhaar is one ID. There is another ID which is the NPR, National Population Register, which is from the Home Ministry. Okay, then Aadhaar obviously is an invasion of privacy. Biometrics are used, taken from you. High cost hai, high risk hai. Benefits uncertain. I would say the benefits are still there, right? Use of a tool of financial inclusion, yes, definitely. If you're an Aadhaar card, you can easily get your bank account open. That is what the Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana actually said, right? As I said, it is an executive decision. So there is a public interest litigation, right? Inclusion. Okay, when I say exclusion, it would mean that if you do not have Aadhaar card, you will not get this benefit. But ये ठीक हो गया है because the Supreme Court said that this is not necessary. So the government really doesn't ask for it. But अगर तुम्हारे पास है, तो it will seen as an identification proof. No, Suman, it's not a law; it's an executive order. Okay. Okay, financial inclusion is the delivery of financial services at affordable cost to the disadvantaged and low-income segments of society. Prathamesh, it's more about not at the advantage; it's then will carry the sanction of the people. Okay, that the representation that is the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha have passed it. Till now, it has not been passed. Okay, so what do we need for financial inclusion? One is financial education, financial literacy. That's the third point. Then we need access to financial markets and access to credit. Okay, so what is the problem with a poor guy is that he has no access to credit. Okay, he has very little financial education. He has access to loans, but at very high rates. So he has access to the money lender. So what do I want? I want that he gets access. So examples are microfinance, right? Self-help groups is a provision of financial services to low-income clients lacking traditionally access to banking and banking-related services. So Muhammad Yunus from Bangladesh started the Grameen Bank. Okay, and the problem with microfinance is that it needs better regulation and centralization. Okay, अभी फाइनेंशियल जो भी इंडिया में प्रॉब्लम ये है, फाइनेंस का काम वही बंदा करता है जिसका पैसा होता है. There are no good intentions, okay, even in this sector. Okay, financial inclusion वही लोग कर रहे हैं जो हाई रेट ऑफ इंटरेस्ट मांग रहे हैं. Okay, that is the problem. इंडिया में प्रॉब्लम क्या है? हम एक्चुअली क्या करते हैं कि प्राइवेट सेक्टर की गुडविल और पब्लिक सेक्टर की एफिशिएंसी ले लेते हैं. समझ रहे हो प्रॉब्लम क्या है? कि पब्लिक सेक्टर की एफिशिएंसी और प्राइवेट सेक्टर की गुडविल. होना चाहिए उल्टा, ठीक है। प्राइवेट सेक्टर में कोई गुडविल नहीं है और पब्लिक सेक्टर में कोई एफिशिएंसी नहीं है, ठीक है। होना क्या चाहिए कि प्राइवेट सेक्टर की एफिशिएंसी एंड पब्लिक सेक्टर का थॉट प्रोसेस और गुडविल होना चाहिए। ओके चलो, ओके प्रधानमंत्री जन धन योजना बेस्ड ऑन द नचिकेत मोर कमिटी, ओके, एंड 28 अगस्त 2014 जीरो बैलेंस अकाउंट विद रुपए डेबिट कार्ड मिला, इसमें एक्सीडेंटल इंश्योरेंस कवर मिला 1 लाख रुपए का, कैन अवेल 5,000 rupees overdraft after 6 months of opening the bank account, 3.02 crores were opened. You also got this accidental insurance is something really good, okay. और ये रुपए क्या है, रुपए क्या है, रुपए कार्ड होता है, जैसे वीजा नहीं लिखा होता कार्ड के ऊपर माइस्ट्रो लिखा होता है, वैसे रुपए है पेमेंट सिस्टम है, राइट। जैसे वीजा है, मास्टर कार्ड है, वैसे रुपए आता है, ओके। ये इंडियन गवर्नमेंट क्या लेके, सो इससे ट्रांजैक्शन कॉस्ट रिड्यूस हो जाएगी। With me? Any questions on poverty topic? Counterparty, what do you mean by that, Prathamesh? I would say it would be the government. Okay, LIC most probably. The government, they are the ones, because जैसे आम आदमी बीमा योजना है, right? Typically that is the one which you are getting, okay. It's a government scheme but they have been linked to this, okay. Typically should be a LIC only, overall backing तो LIC की होती है, though it would be a government scheme, okay. Okay, 3 प्रॉब्लम्स हैं, प्रीमियम नहीं है यार, तभी तो just no premium. You opened an account, you get a insurance. Okay, now let's try to understand education. Now education की problems क्या है? One, the 3 A's: access, availability and affordability. लिख लो भाई 3 A's. Availability and affordability. Right? So the 3 problems of education: access, availability and affordability. And I think everybody understands access, that access to quality education. Not everybody gets a good teacher, not everybody gets access to a quality education. Then availability. Availability क्या है कि स्कूल है 10 किलोमीटर दूर. Like I think we have heard so many stories about great people who went 10 kilometers away to reach a school, right? Who had to study so far away from their houses, etc., etc. And affordability. Now, if you look at it, it is getting more and more expensive education every day, right? So these are the 3 problems of education right now. Then obviously, the quality of education varies from one place to other. Again, the affordability of education. When I say affordability, it is not just money, it is time. ये बात ध्यान रखना, ठीक है? Whenever I talk about, it also concerns whether you can spare the time for it rather than just the money. Okay, then say literacy rate 74.04%, right? Literacy rate है इंडिया का 2011 census. Annual budget education. What has happened? We have started to spend a lot more on education than we did before due to the Right to Education Act and the Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan. If you look at it, it is a fundamental right, that is Article 21A. It is also a fundamental duty of the parents to send children between the year of 6 to 14 years to the school. Okay? It is provided by the government and the private sector. But the problem is the government sector, the quality of education is reducing. Right? It's starkly different. On the private sector, it's getting better and better at it. Okay? This is again a very sad state because education and healthcare are 2 things which should not be privatized. Okay? And why is that? Because these are very, very important. Okay? One of the major contributors to the economic rise of India is subsidized higher education, right? And that is why we have a very growing service sector. So it was very cheap to go to an IIM or IIT maybe 10-15 years ago, okay, in comparison to what it is now, right? Okay, then again, only 15% of India. So there's a very, very high dropout rate. High school भी नहीं पहुंचते बच्चे. So only 7% graduate, right? See, Prathamesh, let's wait for the budget to talk about educational cuts, right? Right now, we cannot say whether it has been cut. Till now, it has been increasing, I would say. Overall spending as a percent of GDP, we have been increasing. Okay? Now, the problem, obviously, India में क्या है? There's more of exam centricity rather than education. So what? We cram and pass rather than understand and learn. Okay? So what is happening? That we only focusing on results. Why we focus on results? Because that is the only thing that matters in the short term. Right? So then again, the problem is lack of qualified teachers is a big problem. Right? You'll get teachers, who are earning like 7,000-8,000 rupees. Right? So what happens? Obviously he'll not be a quality person, right? Because if he's taking so much less money, there's a problem. Prashant, write to the admin, okay, about that. The slides, I don't have control to that. There. Right? Okay. Poor infrastructure is one. It's a big problem. So school hai, lekin toilet nahi. So what happens, Prashant? So we have a school, but there's no toilet. So what happens? Girls after class 7 start to drop out, right? And that is a big problem. So lack of toilets in school, lack of drinking water in school leads to people not coming to school at all. Right? Exactly. See, Manu, if the toilets are there, they have to be maintained also. That's the second part of it. That we are non-planned expenditure versus planned expenditure. So I have planned expenditure to make a toilet. But there is no non-planned expenditure to maintain the toilet. Okay? So I have to maintain it also. Now, education is directly related to the quality of human capital. Okay? So how is quality of human capital increased? By educating them. So despite the fact that India will be extremely young, we have a demographic dividend, right? It will become a demographic nightmare if we are, education system is not improved and we do not get quality, human resources, right? Because there will be a lot of people who will have low skills and it might even lead to a revolution or a civil war. Okay, government initiatives, the reservation or also known as affirmative action. Right to education. Midday meal scheme is very, very important. What happens? So if you go to school, you actually have lunch. Okay, biscuit वगैरह मिलेंगे. So that's actually good in some ways. Adult education is extremely important. Sakshar Bharat. But what is actually needed is education in terms of practicality. What would I say? Then when I go to, maybe school, okay, or I should be taught to fill a form in a government department. Okay, let's assume I want to access, fill a train form. I should be able to do. I should be able to write my name. I should be able to do practical things. Okay, file my income tax return. So next question is, how many of you know how to file your income tax return? Right? Yes, Manu, obviously there's a particular menu. But when I was in school, I remember we used to have biscuits. We used to get a lot of biscuits. Okay, that's long back. Right? Though it might have changed by now. Okay? So what should be taught is practicality. Okay? So then comes the idea of vocational training from practicality. Okay? So vocational training क्या है? कि you should know to be a plumber, etc. Okay? Do carpentry so that you can do these jobs at least. Okay? घर पे electrician का काम, all that. So वो vocational training should be provided. हाँ, that's true, Manu. How much dal and other things is taken. A food security act भी साथ में आ जाएगा ना, I think. I think they'll try to combine these two. Right? So then open and distance learning, we have actually a lot of online systems. Now mocks start हो गए काफी. If you look at it, there's a site called NPTEL. Okay? Right? NPTEL की अगर तुम type करो Google पे, you'll find a site from IIT Madras in which actually a lot of engineering topics are taught. Okay? Manu, they will come together. Okay, I'll tell you that. It's just a matter of time they try to combine all these things. Till now, no, but yes, definitely in some time. Right. Any questions? Okay, self-help groups take, yes, and they're monitored by the parent-teacher associations. So that's one. See, midday meal issues are obviously, typically the quality of food that you get. Okay, so the parent-teachers association should actually be following it. Okay, chalo, आगे देखते हैं. Some recent reforms, scrapping of boards. So what has that done is that made sure that nobody fails, but it also, if you talk of even, tell you about, I was talking to one of the teachers at Bullseye, who takes maths. And, I asked him what's the difference between me and maybe 10 years, which we did and during our batch and this batch. They said that, right now, the number of mediocres are less. So either a person has studied a lot and is good at it, or either he is actually at a very low level. Okay? So what has happened? There's nobody average. Because maybe we have stopped working hard. Okay? So if you're good, you work hard. Okay? If you're not good, you don't really study. So that is what is happening. Okay? And then there's something known as continuous and comprehensive evaluation. Again, it does give a lot of practicals are given, makes you study the whole year instead of maybe a couple of months, which how we passed, okay, during our time. We started from January to, March during our times, okay, 3 months, and that should be enough, okay, to score well. But now you have to study every day, every month, which somehow makes it hard to do sports, I would say. If you want to do sports, it's a problem, right? Again, establishment of new IITs and IIMs, again, there's a lot of dilution. You have lack of teachers, you have lack of professors. Okay, you can make infrastructure, but where will you get the teachers? Okay, that's the problem that the new IITs and IIM will face. They'll have better infrastructure, definitely, but they will have bursts of teachers. So it takes time. Okay. Right. Steps towards the integration of various entrance exam after. Right. So again, problem comes is that I made it very easy till class 10th, but suddenly the competition is extremely hard in class 12th when you are trying for IIT or right. So what do I do then? Okay. So again, the problem of diluting the education system is a big issue. Okay. Right. MDG of okay, yes, they do want to education, but that's a target thing. Okay. MDG still has not talking about quality of education. Okay. Okay. Foreign universities bill. Okay, to allow foreign education to set up. This actually came during our time, 2010 or so. To allow foreign education providers to set up campuses in India and offer degrees. Okay, FDI in education sector is important. Better infrastructure and teaching systems. This is the essay I wrote actually during my time at IIM Ahmedabad. Okay, when I interviewed for IIM Ahmedabad, this was the essay which was given to me. Anyhow, leaving that aside, fee structure, obviously it's extremely expensive to go through, and again they have profit orientation, and that's a problem because till now in India we have not for profit education institutions. Most of them, that is, not all, but most of them. Okay. Then there was a big furor of the 4-year undergraduate program withdrawn by the UGC in 2014. Okay. The problem is that if I want to apply to UK or to US for my masters, they normally ask for a certain basically a 4-year course. Okay. They need a continuation of education of 16 years. Okay. So when I look at it, I need these 4 years also. Okay. If I done 3 year, normally what happens, I actually take admission for 1 year and then next year I go to US to do my masters or to UK. So that's a problem. Okay. Oh yeah. Okay. Right. That's it for me. Any questions about this? Okay. Any questions you have? Okay. Any questions on this? नीति आयोग बोलते हैं उसको. So नीति stands for National Institutions for Transforming India. Okay. So the idea behind Niti Ayog is that you want bottom up ideas. Okay. What used to happen? Planning Commission had something called a negative power rather than a positive power. So what used to happen? It was used to put state into their places by giving them less money. Okay, so let's assume I asked for 10,000 crores, they will give me maybe 4,000 crores. Okay, then there was a bias that if you have the same government in the center and the state, you will get more money. Okay, I want a bottom up approach to planning. That's why Niti Ayog, that is the idea behind Niti Ayog. But yes, Planning Commission used to do a lot of independent research, used to monitor the ministries, which right now I'm not sure whether Niti Ayog will do. But yes, pretty much the same people are, the Sindhu Shri Khullar is still there. She was a secretary before in the Planning Commission. Now she's a CEO. So they have maintained some people have changed. Right? Any other questions? Nitesh, Harshit, Shashwat, Ravi, Srijesh, Rahul, Shishir, any questions? Okay, social issues में ना most importantly एक वो कर लेना female feticide वाला, because a lot of you are from Punjab. Okay. So basically they talk about drugs. Okay. So what problem they'll talk about? They'll talk about drugs. Okay. Or they will talk about dowry. Okay. Death. Okay. And so on. So basically if you're from Punjab, you should be very clear about the drug problem in Punjab. Right. You should be very clear about the cancer deaths in the area of Bhatinda and the reasons for it. Right. Censor board resignation. See, basically it's about the movie of Messenger of God. Okay, everybody knows about that. So Dera Sacha Sauda actually was asked to make, BJP government recently started in Haryana. So because of that, okay, Dera Sacha Sauda, the chief, right? He got this censor thing removed over his film. Okay, and the resignation is more against that. With me on that? हरियाणा में इलेक्शंस हुए थे, वोट्स चाहिए थे बीजेपी को, उन्होंने डेरा सच्चा सौदा वाले हेड को बोला बाबा राम रहीम को कि हमें वोट करो, क्विड प्रो क्यों हुआ है, राइट? Typically not justified or not, it could have been handled better. That what I would say. That censorship is such a important issue, okay? Because you have allowed one Baba to make his film, now everybody is going to make one, okay, and release it. That is the problem. And plus he has acted in it himself. That's a problem again. Okay? So in the future it's a problem. Numbers you should remember to write in essays. That depends what the essay is actually. Okay? But you should know if there's some political constitutional basis of thought, like the Article 21A, right? You should know the literacy rate of India, and then you can talk about how it can be improved. Okay, like the sex ratio of India, sex ratio of Chandigarh, Punjab, Haryana, any place you are from. That is, you should know the sex ratio of that state, so that you should be able to talk about about women empowerment. How many women are there in civil services, how many women judges are there, and so on. Those stats really help. Okay, any questions? Any other questions? Okay, if you have any questions, this is my email. Okay, if you have any questions, this is my email. You can talk about it. Okay, right? Okay, thank you so much.